I mean, most films I've worked on, I've had a good relationship with the director, but you know, there have been one or two occasions when it hasn't quite worked. I've not really had any conflicts with directors over lighting because, you see, when we were working with film, majority of directors didn't sort of say, well, do you think it ought to be a bit lighter or a bit darker? They let you get on with it because it wasn't till the next day that you'd see the results. And of course, quite often a scene can look quite bright on the set, but because of the aperture you set the lens on and the way it's printed, it could look very dark on the screen. And not all directors would be aware of that until they saw the rushes the next day. I mean, the directors I've got have varied enormously, but between being very visual, like Ken Russell, and other directors that are much more performance-related and story-related. John Schlesinger, for instance, combined the two. He was very related to the actors and also had a good visual sense and understood music and so on. So I think the best directors are so talented, multi-talented, to have a command of all the elements that go to make a film. You know, starting with the story, the casting, the script. Getting all that right is such a huge responsibility. And I feel as a cinematographer that if you can have that relationship with the director where the director has the confidence in you to get the visuals right, to know what you're doing with the camera and how you're going to use the light, and you're going to bring something to the table in terms of what the film is about, some ideas. It's not just a technical thing of getting the exposures right and the shadow detail. It's also about bringing something to the story in the way that you use your tools. That, for me, would always vary according to what the scene is about. I think when I first started, having watched a lot of, shall we say, ordinary feature films that were going the rounds at that time, there was an awful lot of similarity in the lighting. You didn't very often see very adventurous lighting in the way that one does today. I think lighting is so much more adventurous in terms of the light and shade and how one can use the camera. When I shot Women in Love, that was 10 years before Steadicam, it was 10 years before HMI. So the equipment was very basic, but we still managed to tell a story interestingly because Ken Russell was a very visual director and we had wonderful locations. You've also got to know how much input you can make with the director, because the director wants to be in charge and wants to be seen to be in charge. And sometimes it happens that a director might say, well, you know, I'd like to do this and this and this, and I might look around and think about it and come up with something else. But instead of making a big announcement, I would very quietly go to the director and say something, you know, what about doing this? Do you think this would work better? And the director quite often said, no, we're not going to do that. This is what we're going to do now. But it's his or her idea. The director has to be in charge. Sure. Or, you know, even if you are bringing in little things in the background, it's the director's picture. So you've got to be supportive of the director.